We can also pull a chair out. There's one right here. Yeah.
Alright, so last week, got it? Alright, so last week we saw, remember, we compared Esau's descendants with Jacob's descendants, and we saw Joseph have some dreams that got him into a lot of trouble. Remember, he was tattling on his brothers, and so his brothers decided to sell him into slavery. So we're going to pick up with that story, but first, in the middle of this, we're going to see another contrast. And so this is what I love, kind of giving you these chapters. I know they're kind of big chunks, but you see them in context of each other. The way that it's written, remember, we want to see it chronologically. We want to have that the history textbook sort of thing. But these were written intentionally. These stories are kind of put together purposely and very intentionally. And you're going to see that today in comparison of chapter 38 and 39 especially. So they are intended to be read back to back. So that's what we're going to do today. And then we're going to see in chapter 40 kind of the results of Joseph's choices. So we kind of saw the results of his brother's choices last week. We're going to see the results of Joseph's choices today. Okay? So we're going to start in chapter 38 of Genesis, 38, in verse 1. So what happened at that time, is what happened previously, which is Joseph was sold into slavery. Okay, so right after this, it happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name She conceived again and bore a son, and called his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. Judah was in Kezb when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and named her Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, Go in to your brother's wife, and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground, so as not to give offspring to his brother. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah my son grows up, for he feared that he would die like his brothers. So Tamar went and remained in her father's house. Wow, that is a crazy story. Yeah, we got questions already.
How can him not wanting to sleep with his brother's wife, and isn't the brother dead now because he didn't please the Lord and the Lord killed him?
Yes.
So how is him not wanting to sleep with his brother's wife because
wicked thing?
And then he was put to death over that too?
Yes, it would have been, yes. Yep. So we're going to talk about
this. Yes.
You're absolutely correct. Yes, it's weird.
Like, did I read all that correctly?
Yes, you did read it correctly, yes. And we will talk about it. Okay, so let's recap the story. Okay, so Judah decides to leave home after the brothers sell Joseph. And we don't know if that's part of his decision, but he decides to leave and go and marry a Canaanite woman. And this decision kind of mirrors Esau's choice. Remember, Esau decided to go marry a bunch of women because he was trying to make mom and dad happy, and ended up not making mom and dad happy, right? So Judah goes and he finds a wife, and they have 3 sons. They have which means watchful, Onan, which means strong, and Shelah, which means request. Okay, so they have these 3 sons, and you think, like, they lived happily ever after, right? And it was just perfect, and everybody's having a good time. But no, we have family drama, okay? So when the first son gets old enough, they find a wife for him, and her name is Tamar. But we are told that he is wicked in the sight of the Lord, and we don't know what his sin was. We don't know what the thing was that he was doing that was so wicked. We're not told, but enough to grant him death in the eyes of the Lord. So he gets put to death. He dies, and Judah, doing the legal thing at the time, then tells the next son, "You are legally required to go into your brother's widow," because they would have had to raise up an heir in the first son's name. So legally he was bound to do this, okay? So legally that was what his responsibility was. Now, instead of, the grown-up thing would have been, hey, let's have a conversation about this, let's see if there's any other legal opportunities that we have, he decides to be deceitful and pretends to go into her and then not perform the act. he intentionally wastes his semen on the ground. So he's being very deceitful in all of this. So the Lord, knowing the heart and seeing that deceit, decides to put him to death as well. So I don't know how many times this event unfolded.
How would God do that? What does that look like?
We're not told exactly the motive what God chose to put him to death. Either he could have just had him, be dead, just stop his heart. We're not told exactly how he dies. Just that it was the Lord's hand in his death. So, yeah. We want more to the story. We want all the details we want to know. But that's not really the point.
It's almost like they skip over
all the good
first
juicy
one died.
details.
Did Judah mourn? Did Judah? What was that time period?
What was that time period like? And they kind of just
how
move
quickly
on.
did he decide? Oh, we just need to move forward. And
And hey, you're next up, right?
Yes.
We gotta have some heirs here, okay? Next up.
Next in line.
Okay, so the second son dies as well, and now the third son is not quite old enough to marry yet. Okay, so that's what we're told, is that he's not quite ready to marry yet. So Judah sends Tamar back to her family's house. So she would basically just be there waiting. So she would return back to her home, which was kind of an odd thing to do, that Judah decides to do this, because normally the woman would stay with the family. So it would have been Judah's responsibility to take care of her and the family. So we already see strike one to Judah that probably
Where did he
wasn't
have her go?
back to her parents' house.
Yes.
Okay, and he's like,
I
just
just
go
understood
home, wait, and then when my son's old enough, I'll call back for you.
Oh.
And that was not
I'd be
what
like,
he was
no.
supposed to do.
My girl's coming home, and that's it.
Yeah, and then we're gonna find somebody else for her. Thank you very much. 2 sons, and
She'd have been coming home before she had to sleep with the second brother.
legally that was her obligation. that she
Legally.
did. Yeah. And that's why the second son dies, because the son would have been biologically his, but not legally his. It would have legally been his dead brother's.
Yeah,
But remember back then, women were property. They
Yes.
didn't have this
Yeah.
right
They
to
didn't have
think
the
and
right
say,
to
I'm
say
going
so.
to.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's
So,
Legally to God or legally to the people.
legally to the people.
The people made this law, not God.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so this is a cultural
But it
law
sounds like
that-
God upheld it.
Yes, because it was the culture and the legality of it, because they were trying to raise up heirs to survive.
Okay.
Okay, so that was part of it. Yes.
Populate the earth.
Populate the earth, yes. Okay, so she is sent back to her parents' house to wait, and what she doesn't know is that Judah has no intention of calling her back. He does not want his third son to die. He's already lost 2 sons to this woman. He's putting the blame on her instead of his 2 sons who have made these decisions. Okay, so he's putting all the blame and guilt on her, and now he's wanting to be rid of her and his responsibility to her. So set that up in your mind for the rest of the story here. Okay? So verse 12. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Sua's daughter, died. So Judah's wife is who dies here. When Judah was comforted, he went up to Timon to his sheep shearers, he and his friends, Hira the Adulamite. And when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timon to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance of Enam, which is on the road to Timon, and she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered herself. He turned to her at the roadside and said, come, let me come
Lord
into
have
you.
mercy.
For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you may come into me? He answered, I will send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, if you give me a pledge until you send it, ... He said, what pledge shall I give you? She replied, your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them over to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away and took off her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent a young goat by his friend the Adulamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the men of the place, where is the cult prostitute who was at Enan at the roadside? And they said, no cult prostitute has been here. So he returned to Judah and said, I have not found her. Also the men of the place said, no cult prostitute has been here. And Judah replied, let her keep the things as her own, for we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat and you did not find her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality. And Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she said, please identify whose these are, the signet, the cord, and the staff. Then Judah identified them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her my son Shelah, and he did not know her again. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb, and when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took it and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. And as he drew his hand back, behold, his brother came out, and she said, what a breach you have made yourself. Therefore his name is Perez. Afterward his brother came out, and the scarlet thread was on his hand, and his name was called Zerah.
Just like,
You just like,
rated R.
Yes. The Bible is rated R. Probably more than rated R.
Yes. And then like back in.
just kidding.
Yeah, that's just
That's
medically
painful.
astounding
That's
to me. That's incredibly painful.
So he stuck his hand out and then went back in and let the other
Other baby come out. Yeah.
come out first?
Yeah. All right. So let's rewind so we can recap this whole story here. We'll get back to that
Yeah,
part.
I'm stuck on the prostitute.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't gotten to the hand yet.
Okay. So years pass and Judah's wife has died. Okay. So he's feeling very mournful and upset. So he goes to hang out with his friends to get comfort from his friends and shear his sheep. Okay. Along the way, he happens upon a woman who's dressed very nicely. And he's like, well, I got some time on my hands and I'm feeling pretty sad. So maybe
Let me
I
get
should-
some comfort from you.
Yeah, let me get some comfort from this stranger. Okay? So what he doesn't know is that the woman who has hid her identity is his daughter-in-law, who has heard that the third son is now of age and ready to be married, and she has not been called.
Okay, can I ask
Okay.
a question?
They were being intimate.
Uh-huh.
She keeps all her clothes on. She
Like,
keeps
how does he
everything-
not know it's
They
her?
don't have electricity,
Right.
so, room might have been really dark.
So
She
he
might not
really
have
didn't know it
uncovered
was her.
herself. He would not have known her body.
Did
You
she
know.
know it was him?
Oh, she knew it was
Oh,
him.
she knew what she was doing.
She set the trap. She knew he was coming because she was told he's on his way, and so she goes out there to be in his way and be available. But it's not like she is the one informing him. She's just out there setting the trap, and then he says, well, you're looking really nice today. Yeah. Okay, so they have their intercourse together, okay? And our son of our deceiver is deceived again, right? Okay? So she goes home and Judah goes about his way, and Tamar finds out that she's pregnant. And news travels fast and gets back to Judah, and Judah wants to have her murdered. Because legally she has been unfaithful to his son. Okay? Because he was supposed to be waiting around. So she has been legally immoral, so she gets to die. Bring her out, we're going to stone her and burn her. That's it. Can you hear Judah here? Okay, he wants vengeance right now, yet who's in the wrong here?
How dare she?
How dare she? Yeah, Judah's the one who's in the wrong here. Okay? And so she sends along the items that she took from him as a pledge of like, I'm going to pay you with a goat. Yeah, that would have been currency. Okay? So these items that he gives her, are kind of like a promise of like, I'm going to exchange these later for a goat. Okay? But when the friend shows up, he can't find her. So he can't pay her. And she has the items. So she sends the items along and says, whoever these are, this is the man who came into me. And then Judah goes, I recognize those things and they're mine. And to Judah's credit, he says, she is more righteous than I am. Okay? And all of his dealings have now come upon Judah. And he goes, wow, she's done the right thing in all of this and I've done the wrong thing. I've done wrong against her in all of this, and she has acted more righteously than me.
Very standoffish of him.
Very standoffish of him. So he brings Tamar back into his household, but what we're told is that he doesn't know her again, and so they do not have sexual relations again. but she gives birth to twins, okay? And what's interesting is in the middle of this labor, one of the twins, his hand comes out, okay? So they tie a scarlet thread around it to saying this is the firstborn technically, which is very odd. And the hand goes back in, and the second baby comes out, which is now the second born, okay? But they called him Breach because he is basically like averted around his brother. Where do we see that? Not physically, but spiritually, we see Esau and Jacob being replayed there, okay? So he gets subverted with the second born being technically born first, all right? So he gets named Breach. And then the other son is born second, who is now the firstborn, and his name is Zerah, and his name means rising or shining, and he's the one who has the scarlet thread on his arm, so he's technically legally the firstborn, even though he's born second.
So what does Perez's name mean?
It means breach.
Breach.
They literally called him Breach.
Okay,
So
then
lost 2 sons and then got 2
And
more.
then gets 2 replaced. Yes. So for the loss of his 2 sons, he gets 2 replaced as now heirs. Okay.
Okay,
but poor.
so the one with the scarlet cord is raised and
Legally.
treated as the first.
Yes.
Okay.
Because he did
came out first.
You know, he was first.
He was partially born first. So legally, he is the firstborn, even though
He was determined to
officially
be firstborn.
he was determined to be first. Yes. Okay, so through Tamar, Judah's line continues because we're not told what happens to the 3rd son. So he was not given Tamar, so we don't know what actually happens to the 3rd son.
I mean, she's living
But-
with his dad, so.
Right? Probably
I
was
guess
he
he's
probably
two
didn't
brothers.
want her. Yes.
And both brothers, so I'm guessing he moved on.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not told what
He was probably like,
happens.
dodge the bullet there, thanks, Dad.
Yeah, we're not told. But we are told what happens to one of these 2 sons. Perez, we find out in Ruth that he is the great grandfather of Boaz. So this is that Perez. Okay. The one who is the breach, the one who subverts the firstborn, is the one the line continues to Boaz. Okay? So it is quite an interesting story we have for Judah here. Now, in comparison, we're going to find out a story of Joseph's life. Now, these are not chronologically happening at the same time, but they're put here for you to compare between the 2. Okay? So let's find out about Joseph in chapter 39. Now, Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, he had brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. And he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he had made him overseer in his house and all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had done in the house and the field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food that he ate. Okay, so we find out what happens to Joseph.
Well, sounds like he's living the life.
He's living his best life, but he's a slave.
Sold into slavery,
He's
but
living
living
the
his
slavery,
best
but
life.
he's living his best life.
Yeah.
Yes. So we get told that he is basically in charge of an entire estate by an Egyptian officer. We are told that the Lord was with Joseph, and everything that Joseph touches prospers. Okay, so this Egyptian has really made a great investment here buying this Jewish slave here. But despite being so far from home, he is wrongfully enslaved. He's not supposed to be a slave, but God is working through him. Okay. So again, we read the first part of the story and we think everybody lives happily ever after, right? Everything's going great for Joseph, going great for Potiphar. It should just be they lived happily ever after the end, but that's not how the Bible stories end. Okay? So the rest of verse 6 says, "Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance." Okay, yeah, he was a fox. Okay, he was very handsome in appearance. After a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph
Oh my.
and said,
Wait,
"Lie
whose
with
wife?
me."
His
Potiphar, that Egyptian
His
dude.
master's wife. This is the mistress of the house. Yes, she is in charge.
The wife
of
is
the
the
house.
mistress?
She's master, mistress.
Spicy.
Yeah,
Okay.
And she wants Joseph.
she wants Joseph. He's really handsome and he's really young and he's good looking. And everything that he's doing, the Lord is prospering him. So she's like, "Ooh, yeah, come lie with me." Verse 8. But he refused and said to his master's wife, Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in this house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against who? God.
That's right.
Joseph is knowing exactly where sin lies. He's going to sin against God. And as she spoke to Joseph, day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her or to be with her. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house were in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her house and said, See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home, and she told him the same story, saying, The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came to me to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me, and he fled out of the house. Okay, so Joseph's success brings some temptation to his mistress, the mistress of the house. And the Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him day after day after day after day. She wants him, okay? And it might possibly be not only because Joseph is very handsome and form in appearance, but her husband might also be a eunuch because he is an officer in Potiphar's house, so that because you couldn't be around the queens and things like that, it is possible that he's a eunuch, okay? But whatever the reason, even if that is not true, she's the one who tries to seduce Joseph. Now, technically and legally, he would be considered her property because she is mistress of the house. But as a human being, he had the right to say no because that would have not been the right thing to do, okay? And he knows that this sin, if it occurs, is going to be against God, not just Potiphar, not just her, but against God. And so that's his answer to all of this. So he tries to avoid her as much as he can, but he's in charge of everything, including all the things in the house. And one day, she decides to get him trapped and grabs a hold of him by his coat, his outer garment. Not that one. That one's back home. A different coat.
Just checking.
But when he pulls the other way, the coat is left behind in her hand. So yes, another coat is getting this boy in trouble again. Okay? And what happens is that she decides to then lay out a scene for her husband to come home to. Okay?
Dirty book.
She tells all of the men in the house a lie, that it was Joseph who tried to come into her, and when she screamed, he ran off. Okay? And then when Potiphar comes home, she's like, look at this. Look at what the servant that you brought here did to me. And she tells another lie, tells him the same made-up story, and falsely accuses him. Okay? So let's find out what happens. As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, This is the way your servant treated me, his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him. Whatever he did, the Lord made it successful. Okay? So Joseph gets thrown in prison.
I think it's crazy that he believed his wife when he knew already that Joseph was a godly man, and that's why he promoted him to the position in the house, and why he wouldn't believe in Joseph.
Yeah, and we hear no questioning of Joseph.
Right, no, he was like, yep, you're right. Wife
Well,
is
at the end of
mine.
the day, he's still a slave.
He's still a slave, and the husband has to take his wife's word above all.
Right.
Because in
Right,
the
wrong,
end,
or
he's
indifferent.
just a slave and he's just property. So she says so, her word carries weight and his does not.
Would he have had the right to just kill him instead of put him in prison?
Yes, he would have had legally that right. But he chooses to throw him in prison, and it's interesting, he doesn't throw him in a slave's prison, he throws him in the prison of the king's prisoners. So it's an interesting place where he lands up, where he ends up.
What's the difference?
And so this would have been a better prison, to put it mildly. It wouldn't have been like the debtor's prison where they would have to work off their debts and potentially be sick and things like this. So
Okay.
the king's prison would have been more for like
Like a federal prison, a
kind
country
of more
club.
like
Yeah.
a federal prison, kind
Yeah.
of like that level. So he would have been treated okay. He would have been nearby, so that Potiphar would have been able to go and check on him and things like that, and able to keep an eye on him.
It's amazing because you see how God completely orchestrates everything.
There's a reason why he's in this specific prison.
Absolutely.
It's
Yep.
amazing.
And Potiphar's kind of has a hand in all of this. So God's using Potiphar's choices in all of this. Potiphar had a lot of opportunities open to him of how to punish Joseph, and where he puts him plays a role in all of this. And what's even more interesting is that we see that Joseph doesn't just sit down and just like bear his punishment, right? Like when he was in the pit and he's crying out, he doesn't do that. God continues to bless him to where the warden of the prison is like, listen, I'm going to take off, you got this. And he just lets Joseph take care and be in charge of everything. The warden of the prison, who would have to answer to the Pharaoh if something got messed up off with his head, he goes, Joseph's got this. And he gives Joseph charge over all of these prisoners. Okay? And we're told that the Lord continues to prosper him even when he's in jail. Even when he's there being falsely accused, God is still with him in jail. Because God's not done with Joseph yet. Okay? So let's find out what happens in chapter 40. Sometime after this, the cupbearer of the Egypt and the baker committed an offense against their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. And he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them. And they continued for some time in custody. And one night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each his own dream, and each dream in its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there's no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph, and he said, "In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded and blossom shot forth, the clusters ripened into grapes. The Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into the Pharaoh's cup and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Then Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as formerly, when you were his cupbearer. Only remember me when it is well with you, and please do me this kindness to mention me to Pharaoh, so get me out of this house. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me in the pit." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and the uppermost basket were all sorts of baked goods, food for Pharaoh. But the birds were eating out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered, "This is the interpretation. 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and birds will eat the flesh from you. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him." So,
And we don't know why the baker was hanged, and
we're gonna get it. Okay, so let's recap. So we're in prison. And 2 of Pharaoh's people end up in prison, okay, the cupbearer and the baker. And they're there for a little while, we're not told exactly how long, but they're there for a little while. And one night they both have these dreams that kind of are so powerful, they're really disturbed by these dreams and they don't understand. They kind of get the sense that these are not typical dreams, they might be visions. And so Joseph says, let me interpret them for you, okay, because God is the one who can interpret dreams, I'll interpret them for you. So the cupbearer is the person who oversaw the Pharaoh's drink, which would include wine. So anything that got into his cup, the cupbearer would take a sip first. If he died, we didn't drink out of that cup. Okay?
Right.
Okay. And the baker is the person who is responsible for the Pharaoh's food. So kind of similar, you would take some. If you died, we don't eat that, right? Okay? So that was their 2 jobs. And we find out that there's something that happened. So we think that there's kind of a murder plot going on because these are the people who were physically the closest to him. So we could slip something in either the wine or the bread and make Pharaoh die. Okay? So these are our 2 chief suspects here. They get thrown in prison. Okay? So Joseph interprets their dreams that the cupbearer is the one who's going to be restored in 3 days, and the baker will be decapitated and then impaled on a spike and set up, and the birds are going to eat his flesh. Okay? And so these men are like, what is going on? And then they sit together for 3 days to see if this interpretation is going to come true. Okay?
Can you imagine being the baker and the cupbearer, like his comes true and it's like, oh no.
Yeah. So this happens on the same day.
Yeah, it's happening.
Just tell me where to go.
So 3 days later, Pharaoh decides to have a feast, and it's his birthday, okay? And so he brings out these 2 people to deal with him, and what he's discovered among this time, so he's obviously investigating and trying to figure out exactly who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth, and things like that. He discovers that the cupbearer has told the truth. He is not trying to kill Pharaoh, and so he's restored, and we're told he gives back to giving the cup to Pharaoh. And yet, they find out that the baker is the one who was planning on murdering Pharaoh, that he has a hand in this plot to kill Pharaoh. So he is executed, his body gets impaled, and he dies, okay? And what's interesting is the symbols that we can't unsee knowing the New Testament story. We have 2 people who are held in position, and the cupbearer, the one who has the wine, is the one who is restored, the blood, and it is the baker who's in charge of the bread, the body, is the one who gets impaled on a cross, put out there, and the birds eat his flesh, and he dies. So the bread, the body, dies, but the wine, the blood, is restored. So it's very interesting, these symbols that we can't see. And secondly, that it happens after 3 days. That they sit with that for 3 days. Okay? So Joseph asked the cupbearer, please remember me and mention me to Pharaoh because I'm here and I'm not supposed to be here. I've been accused falsely. If he can find out which one of you has done falsely, he can find out that I didn't do anything wrong. So mention me to Pharaoh because the cupbearer would have had Pharaoh's ear, being that close to him. But we find out that the cupbearer does not keep his promise. He goes on his merry way, living his life, enjoying his status, and being back in Pharaoh's good graces. And Joseph is left in the pit, and what we find out is he's in the pit for at least another 2 years. They're being completely forgotten by the cupbearer. Until Pharaoh is going to have some dreams, and they need an interpreter. And the cupbearer is going to remember what happened 2 years ago.